social institution grabbed hold of him, and the man will probably die because he just could not handle that way of living. So I became his caregiver. I moved in to the apartments where they were, and we began to obviously to interact and talk a lot more. Anyway, so really that's the premise to this book. And then over the next 10 years, when I became a reclusive and celibate, believe it or not, because as I say, my problems with my emotional imbalance really made it very difficult for me to relate to women. And that's honest, I'm being honest, that's the way it was. Okay, you can see it's changed now, so I'm married and I'm very happy. But at that time in my life, it was a million miles from my mind ever being with a woman. So actually I was in a very good place. If I'd gone into a monastery, it would have been absolutely perfect. But it wasn't meant to be that way. I had to learn in the world in which we live, we exist, in the real world, you could say, or with all the interactions, the challenges that we face day to day. Anyway, Pat was the man who guided me to a place where I could begin to understand what love was about. But it wasn't an easy ride, because he said, you need to go and sit in a chair for 3 months and do nothing. I said, are you crazy? He said, you need to stop thinking. What, become like a cabbage? Well, that's what it seemed like, you know. Are you mad? But that's what he meant. I had to do, not literally for 3 months, I'd just perish. I still had to eat, drink, work, sleep. Although I won't even go to the sleep aspect, because I wasn't even allowed to sleep as time went on. Because once you start getting into contact with those beings up there, they don't allow you to sleep. They just keep waking you up. If your mind is going off in a direction it shouldn't, those little whispering thoughts come in there, it just, you know, snap, bang, whatever. It wakes you up, and it won't let you sleep until you actually stop thinking. For me, I'm talking about me. Everyone has a different life path, but I was in a very dark place. I had to learn this hard way. Over a long period of time, I did begin to silence those thoughts, those whispering voices. I began to realize it wasn't me. It was just a confused mass. And it's very difficult, because you have to start applying your will to stop those thoughts coming out. You have to actually concentrate. You're aware of it, you have to keep quelling it, not let it dominate. That's how it was to me. You know, it's got no place in the temple of clinical science, what I'm saying. And you can find words to describe the supernatural in clinical terms. Some would say I was schizophrenic, perhaps, the way I was. But this was the way I was healed of that problem that I had as an individual. I would have done very dangerous things had something not interrupted that flow. I would have probably killed somebody. Because that violence builds up, the tension grows and grows and grows, and you no longer have control. A lot of the times you hear about the violence, murder, everything, because people associate to weapons. If you pick up a knife and butter a piece of bread, you're not thinking about what that knife can do. But those who have a troubled mind do think about what that knife can do. And that's the difference. That's when you lose control of your mind, when you become possessed, effectively, by your own evil demons that are in your mind. And it's a very dark place, as I say. Art portrays it, writers portray it, music portrays it as well. But it's a very real phenomenon, and it was a very difficult time for me. But at the same time, I began to become accustomed to those spiritual beings who were there to help me. I didn't really see them a great deal, but just occasionally, when it would just bang right through my sleep like a huge explosion, and you're just shocked out of your sleep and you're staring at something there like an apparition, and then your eyes are blinking wildly, but all your thoughts are suspended, so it's suspended animation, like suspended belief. So whatever prejudice you might have, it's blocked, and you have to accept what's right there in front of your face. And that's how it was to me. In fact, that was where I actually saw Pat from a previous lifetime, what he was. He was sitting in a silhouette looking, it reminded me of Plato, the way he was dressed, just looking in a direction like that. So I knew then this man was not someone to trifle with. He did have a real wisdom that would help me get out of the dark place that I was in. So it went on, and I became more in control of my own destiny. I began to get little insights as to the beauty that is out there. When I said about where are we going, why are we here, what's the nature of existence, if you can find this place at utter peace, you can actually open doors to unbelievable vistas that exist out there. We have to actually tear the curtain of illusion that blinds us to what we have never seen as humans. It's there. On the other hand, we can only catch glimpses of it as humans because of its depth, its intensity. We're organic beings. It would just kill us. We cannot look at something. It's like stepping into the sun, and we wouldn't even get near it. We'd just be fried. And that's the way it is. Why do you think we don't see much in the way of beings? We get UFOs, okay, that's probably the nearest we get to it, on the whole. And what are UFOs? We mock them, of course. But UFOs are an extension of our intelligence that we have become disconnected from. That's what they are. Ultimately, we will begin to realize we are actually part of that, but we don't even know it yet. That is when understanding will reach its full state of being. But anyway, a lot of this is discussed in the book through experiences that I had. And the one experience I will talk about from my rather worn workbook talks about what I just said, where I went through this initial stage of seeking my stillness within myself. And I mentioned about becoming like a cabbage, which is what was in my head at the time. Oh yeah, I can see myself doing that, I thought. Oh, but I did. I had to work, eat, sleep, but for the rest of the time, yes, I did practice what Pat asked of me. By the way, what did Pat look like? That's an interesting point. Well, we've got an interesting little prop here, Buddha. That's what it looked like. Just an older version. Bald head, solemn, heavy jaw, big eyes, blue eyes, and always in that pose of absolute stillness, calmness. Never going. And as I say, it was kind of irritating at times, so whatever you said, just seemed to bounce off it. It didn't bother him at all. But anyway, so eventually this led to the uncorking of this explosive bottle of attention, which I mentioned, that existed inside me. Because once the mind and body is still, then the positive energy of peaceful intent collides with the negative energy of inner conflict. That's how it was with me. I experienced a violent reaction. But ultimately I did heal, and I did purge the demon from my psyche. I mean, in this chapter, I'm not talking about it now, but I did talk about how that happened, how I did exercise this demon just through seeking that inner stillness. The demon can't exist with that. It's like a vampire. It just sucks on your sickness. But once you begin to cure yourself of that, it has nowhere to hide. It has to leave, find another host. Anyway, clinical sedation and psychotherapy would have been nicer, but of no value to me. I needed to cure my own ills. It's intriguing how modern psychology gives supernatural an acceptable face. Elements of possession are described as schizophrenia and split personalities. All personas are okay, but demons are not. Call it what you like, but the diagnosis is the same. Just the name on the bottle has changed. So in the aftermath of exercising my psychological demon, I experienced a remarkable vision. Even more so because it happened whilst I was wide awake, like this, just as we are now. If you call this awake, it doesn't mean we are awake. What I'm talking about? I'm talking about the kind of beauty that penetrates into the core of your being. The kind of beauty you would die for. And where do you find such beauty? Oh, nowhere romantic. This experience was in an elevator of all places, an empty one. although you could make it